Hello and welcome to a windy but warm afternoon here in the Mara Triangle. And we have some of my favourite antelopes there. And some eland. There's quite a lot of game around us at the moment. But good afternoon, my name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Archie on camera and I hope you're ready for a wonderful adventure. Now, eland is something we see quite often, but we sometimes don't see them down on the plains. We normally see them up in the hills, so I'm going to take this chance to chat a little bit about eland. Aren't they beautiful? Now remember, if you have any questions, hashtag Safari Live. Now, the eland is a part, its scientific name is Toro tragus oryx. And Toro tragus means bullock or bull-like goat. And goat males that have tufts of hair that come out of their ears that apparently resemble a goat's beard. Now, oryx is Greek for pickaxe, and it is to do with their sharp, straight-like horns. So, other oryx, Kempsville, and scimitar horned oryx, and Bisa oryx, all named after those very straight horns. Now, one of the things I find quite interesting about how eland got their name is that they were first described by a man named Pallas. Bones that were in Holland where he was discovering about in a museum. So he never came to Africa, he never actually saw an eland, but he named it based off the bones and specimens that were brought back. And there's a lot of things named after him, a lot of stuff from all over the world that he never got to. Most of his science and botany was based in Russia, and Catherine II was his patron, who actually bought him large palaces and stuff, and he taught her children the natural sciences. And there we go, eland. So, named by a man who never got to see one in the flesh. Obviously brought back by some Dutch explorer. Now, eland is not an African word, and I would like to know if anyone knows about another animal that is called an eland that doesn't live in Africa, and what language is that, and what is that animal that is called an eland. Hashtag Safari Live if you know the answer to that. Now, the people of the country where it is named call eland an eland antelope, so it doesn't get confused with the other eland, or probably pronounced elant or elant. I'll let you ponder on that. We've got lots actually going on. We've got a small little herd of buffalo having a little greet. Some of them just came out of the thickets. Hello, buffles. Oh, listen, you can hear a zebra. Here we go. These have split off from that larger herd that Jamie had this morning in this area. They've decided, there's no need to go wandering about long distances. When the grass is good, there's water close by, let's just relax around here. There are some buffalo bulls that spend a lot of time here, but as I say, there looks to be a cow or two amongst them. Those are all boys there. The cows have gone back down into the thickets. Oh, tiny babies. Zebra there. Set off to the left. Do I need to reverse view there? Yes. Okay, it's behind me. Sorry. Tiny baby zebra. A day or two old. Hold on. There. Can you see it there? Look how small it is. It was off to the right of those ones. Just standing out with its mom. There you go. Very little. Very little. The wind is very strong this afternoon. So sweet. Mom, play with me! Mom's busy getting her nutrients to provide milk though. A couple of days old, the oldest. Wendy says it is so cute indeed. That is a very sweet looking baby zebra. Now, on yesterday's sunset safari, we noticed a giraffe that had an injury, a baby giraffe. So I think I might head down to that area, see if we can catch up and see if the hyenas might have found it or if it's managed to survive another night. So now off down there, around the edge of the Mara River. So that's where I'm now going to be heading. And then if we have no luck there, we're going to move along the edge of that forest, along the edge of the river, seeing what else is about. Oh yeah, the key's getting stuck. There we go. Oh! Okay. So as I measure towards the east, let's see what these plans are for this afternoon.
I am meandering towards the river, I think. I think that sounds like the best possible way that one could spend a Sunday afternoon, spending a little bit of relaxing time around the river. The warthogs haven't even made it that far. They've made it into the marshy area around the river and are enjoying a good combination of both wallowing and at the same time feeding. Enjoying a Sunday afternoon buffet of the sort of the different type of grasses that you find in those marshy areas. A very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Adrian is on camera with me, and we are heading, as I said, towards the river crossings to see whether or not we can change our cat streak of late. Since I've got back to the Mara Triangle, I have not found one cat. So I'm hoping maybe we find the Paradise Pride, perhaps the Lion and Musketeers along with Scar. We'll see. Either way, I think a trip along the river is nice. It's a blazing hot afternoon, and I was hoping maybe things would be going for a swim. Well, perhaps not a swim, not in the Mara River. We don't get to see elephants swimming here. They don't enjoy it nearly as much. Soccer dash? Do you know, I never know what time it is at any one point in time, but you want to know what time it is in the Mara, and it must be just gone 3:30, because we've started our sunset safari, so it must be around about 3:30. That's the only reason I ever know which particular time of day it is because of our show start and finish times, or our safari start and finish times. So it must be around about there. It's still really warm. It's 90 Fahrenheit, 90 Fahrenheit, and 32 degrees centigrade. So it is hot again this afternoon, as it was yesterday. After a chilly start to our sunrise safari, it has heated up tremendously. Hence why I was hoping that we'd find things either mud bathing, as these warthogs have been doing, or perhaps having a swim or a drink. At this time of day, that is largely the only thing that you're going to find happening out here. Temperatures like this slow everything down. Everything has a rest in the shade, goes to sleep or wallows in the mud, and it almost feels as though the Mara is holding its breath. Oh, there's a baboon in the background. The Mara is holding its breath until the temperatures begin to drop and the afternoon draws to a close. And then the lions start moving. Actually, everything starts to move and become a lot more active. I just heard a very strange sound from an elephant. I got distracted. I apologize. Very strange trumpeting sound. So there's some elephants up in the road in front of us. I was hoping if they were gathered here they might enjoy a mud bath, because it is something that they really truly enjoy to do. For our new viewers, the elephants will coat themselves in mud to help to cool themselves down. I also think they just like the feeling of it on their skin. As for the chap on the right, I don't know what he's doing. I think he's dancing. The other right, sorry. What? They're both doing it now. They were both doing it. That was so weird. Doing a little dance. Now the one on the left's doing it again. Mandy, yes, absolutely. These are the same species of elephant that you see in Djuma. So it's exactly the same. We've got the African savanna or bush elephant, as it is now known, the African forest elephant, which is a species that we have never managed to show live, as far as I know, but that would be encountered in the forests of Congo, for example. There are forest elephants, and then there are, of course, the Asiatic elephants. So, yes, they are exactly the same species. There are some minor differences. You are so weird. What are you doing, Elise? There are some minor differences. Very, very small things. Okay, let's go a little bit closer because I can see some crowned cranes up ahead as well. So in terms of the differences, it's not enough for them to even, I'm sure somebody somewhere has argued that they are a subspecies of elephant. But one thing that we have noticed is that the tusks of the Mara elephant, the female Mara elephants, are much, much larger. As for why that might be, we've put forward a few theories. The possibility of just genetic differences. Maybe it comes from eating softer food. There's more grass around. Here we go. Let's check up on our crowned crane nest. Have you got eggs there? This must be the same pair of crowned cranes, I assume, that Taylor saw chasing elephants away, trying to protect their nests from the elephants' intrusion. You can imagine it's quite a risky business nesting on the ground like this. Any ground nesting bird runs the risk of having their eggs squashed by an unsuspecting elephant, or actually anything else, buffalo, anything that moves through an area like this. One has to wonder about how they choose where they're going to put their nest sites. Ben, unfortunately I don't. I've never had the opportunity to touch the crest or the crown, and it's something that I find quite sad because I would really love to know how it feels or how soft it is. I don't know how soft it is. I can only imagine that it's quite soft. I mean, it's just feathers. It's just a different type of feather, and it looks so soft. I think it looks like you could run your hand over it and it would be silky, silky, silky. But it might actually be bristly, for all I know. I've never had the opportunity to touch a crowned crane's crest. I don't know whether anybody out there who's watching has had that opportunity. And usually, if I'd encountered a dead crowned crane, which I haven't, fortunately, not that I wish crowned cranes to die, but if I'd encountered a dead one, I most definitely would have got out and felt the differences. I always think that little protrusion on its forehead also looks as though it must feel like velvet. But again, just a different type of feather. And it's quite amazing when you think about the different types of feathers that birds are capable of producing and the way in which they do so. I mean, on a human being, essentially hair is hair. There's not that much difference in hairs in different parts of the body, whereas with birds, they produce that downy feathering underneath. They've got the primary feathers. They've got, in the case of this crowned crane, that bizarre crest or crown. The sort of, I don't know how else to describe it, but the feathery grey feathers on their necks. Shame, she's so hot. She's really, really hot. For a lot of birds out here, it's not so much incubating the eggs to keep them warm. Some of the time it's also actually keeping them shaded, is also quite important. I'm just going to sit here a little bit longer. I think I want to see if this bird will get up and move off her nest. So while I wait here, let us go across to Brent to see where he's off to next and if he's found anything for you.
Well, we haven't got very far. We do apologize. I was having some audio dips apparently, so we've been trying to fix it. Hopefully our tech genius Alexander has fixed it now, and we should be all great, grand, spectacular, wonderful, and we'll be carrying on. Oh, bumpity bump. Okay. I'm going to go a little bit quicker. There's not much happening at this time of the day in this long grass area. We're going to head down towards the shorter grass around the river, see if we can find that baby giraffe again. But now I think I saw something that might be a little bit more interesting. Just hang on. Where are my far lookers? Come here, far lookers. My far lookers were lying to me. Well, they did spot something underneath that tree in the shade. I thought, woof, is there a lion there in the distance? But no, I think it is a buffalo if we get a bit closer. Yes, it's buffalo enjoying the shade. Now, it's quite warm. It's about 90 degrees Fahrenheit in the Mara, which is quite warm for the Mara. It doesn't really get much warmer than that, but I hear we do have some answers coming in about what other animal shares the same name as an eland. Aha! Well done, James and Chris. You are spot on, 100% correct. The moose is also known as an eland. It's originally from Dutch, but it's also known for quite a lot of the Scandinavian countries as an eland. But the original confusion there came from Dutch, as far as my memory serves me correctly. But it sounds like Jamie's got some lovely birds. She's got another bird to show you that's sitting near the crowned crane.
Look at this. Oh no! Wait, come back. Oh, that was such a pretty little moment. Well, at least you got to see it. I don't know if any of you were quick enough to screenshot that, because that was really so special. The malachite kingfisher had come to perch right next to the crowned crane, and it gives such a lovely perspective as to size. I can still see the malachite. It's flown a little way away, but to try and help Adrian to find it is going to be difficult. It's sitting right in front of, sort of front and off to the left of me. It is, if you took the corner of the car there, it just fluttered a little bit. If you took the corner of the car and went in a straight line from there, left, there you go, left, up, there, well done. There's our little malachite, and it was sitting right in front of the crowned crane, and I really wanted to just marvel with you all at the joy of birds. That really sounds completely ridiculous, but the fact that in this wonderful wide world of ours, we get the combination of different types of birds, where you can have a little bright blue jewel like this little malachite that is probably about the size of my hand, and then you can get the flamboyance of the crowned crane, a royalty of crowned cranes, a construction of crowned cranes, and all the other collective nouns that you all came up with. I know it's obviously not a very profound statement, but isn't it incredible that they've got so many different shapes and sizes of birds, from the flightless ostrich to these tiny little things that really, with the sun shimmering off their feathers and the burnished brown, I don't know, it's something that I've been marveling at a lot recently. I think every now and again in life one has these, not realizations, because it's something that you've known your whole life, but these just little reminders of how fortunate we are to see things like this. Delicate little sunbirds or hummingbirds, robins. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Noriko, absolutely. It's the wonderful thing to sit and watch this kingfisher as its body moves to balance it on the stem of the, I think it's a reed, it could be a sedge, but I think it's a reed, and then the head stays absolutely still, or at least as still as possible. So the head stays in one place and the body sort of bobs about, and as a result, of course, for a little kingfisher, it means that it can actually manage to zero in on its potential prey. Now, the kingfisher's name is a bit deceptive, as most of the kingfisher species don't actually fish. The pied kingfisher is very much a fisherman bird thing, piscivore, and then the giant kingfisher as well, whereas these little smaller species of kingfisher, or the brown-hooded, grey-hooded, dare I say the woodland singular kingfishers, they are all mainly insect-based. But in a place like this, I imagine that this little kingfisher is looking for small fish. Maybe little tadpoles as well, and insects. But that's a really good observation, is the way in which it's attempting to keep its head in exactly the same place. Bird's eyesight is, I think, it's difficult to do direct comparisons, but I think you could describe it as better than ours. It's certainly more sensitive than our eyesight. Oh, do a little shuffle. A little malachite shuffle. Faye, well, I think that's possibly part of the reason behind its balancing act, but Faye's wondering if birds don't feel sick with that sort of rocking motion, a motion sickness type experience. I don't think so. I don't think it's something that they ever have to worry about. Perhaps it's also to do with having their eye on a fixed point. Like if you were a dancer and you are doing several turns, then you know to spot, to stop yourself from getting dizzy. And you pick a point on wherever you happen to be, and then you whip your head around and focus on that point. I don't know whether it works in a similar way to that, to avoid upsetting the communication between the inner ear and the eyes and the brain, and creating that motion sick type feeling. I don't think they get sick. I've never really asked them. I'm not sure if we'd actually know, but I doubt it. That's what they're adapted to be able to do. All of these sorts of little reed birds. This is so sweet. Come back here now, please. Oh, wait, hold on. The crown crane's going to walk in front of it for us, or behind it. Matt says that he looks as though he's grass surfing. I agree. Look, I'm still marveling. I know this is not anything new to all of you, but just the fact that you get these two totally different species of birds, and they couldn't be more different. The crown crane's almost, slight exaggeration, it's not quite as tall as me. It certainly would come up to above my stomach at its tallest. And then this little weeny bird that is, as you said, grass surfing. I'm still waiting for it to see if it's going to catch something. I often wonder, on a similar train of thought, if and down and up again. There it is. Did it catch something? Looks like it did. What is that? It's enormous. Is that a little fish? Good grief, it is a little fish. That shine is unmistakable. That is massive. It's so cool. Go on down the hatch. Oh no, don't disappear. Where'd you go? I'm keeping an eye on it. Oh, it's gotten so far away with its little fish prize. Ooh, definitely too far away. Oh well, that was fun while it lasted. What were we talking about? Oh, I was going to say, I wonder if birds enjoy flying in high winds. Something like a batelier. I heard one calling up above us now, and I can only imagine it's flying in a serious rocking motion as it goes along. Alright, I completely forgot about the crown crane. Francis from Israel is saying, well done, little birdie. It did do well. That was a serious fish. I mean, the fish was probably only about that big, but for a bird that's the size of my hand, actually possibly even smaller now that I look at the size of my hand. No, about the size of my hand. Right, well, since our kingfisher's flown off, we'll stop at the crowned crane, because I don't get tired of looking at them. cranes, I don't know. I don't know what the incubation period is for a crowned crane. If I have to guess, it would be my standard guess of around about 30 odd days for a crowned crane. 30 days? Something like a hornbill is about 40 days. That's quite a big bird. They do hatch precocial. It's found something in there. I have absolutely, I confess, no idea what the incubation period is for crowned craned eggs. Please let me know if you know what I'm sure you can find out relatively quickly. I don't know. I'm guessing around about 30 days. Okay, well, we'll go across to Brent. I'm sure he's going to have an answer for you. In fact, I'm sure he already has an answer for you. Let us go and find out from him if he does.
Hello, welcome back. We're nearly down towards where that injured giraffe was yesterday. And what was Jamie asking again? Sorry, I know it was about crowned cranes, but it's quite windy. That's all I heard about the crowned cranes. I know it is about crowned cranes. We are lucky to see so many of them here. Now, of course, there is a different type of crowned crane, the northern crowned crane, which goes further north in Kenya. Ooh, that's quite a tough one. How long do the eggs take to hatch? I'm not 100% sure. I think it's around a month, but I will double check for you shortly. While I'm not driving, but I think it is around a month, but I'll double check that to make sure I'm not fibbing. But yeah, as far as my memory serves, it is about a month. Now, what have we here? We have some topi. Hello, topi types. Scarlett wants to know, when is the rainy season in the Mara? Scarlett, it's all year. That's what I've come to terms with since I've been here. It's all year. But no, the traditional rainy seasons, you have two. The small rains and the big rains. We are just out of the small rains now, except the small rains carried on for a lot longer than normal. February is supposed to be the driest month of the year out here. There we go. Hello, Torpes. But it comes between the two rainy seasons. So the November, December is the small rains. The big rains then start March, April, May into the beginning of June. That is the big rains. But April, May being sort of the sort of core of the big rains. But it rains throughout the year in the Mara. It's unlike the low veld, where if you get one set of rain during the dry season, it's unusual. Weather is here. It is raining the whole year round. Hence why we have roofs on our cars in the Mara, and we don't in South Africa. It's because of the rain. Look at those little nervous, the little nerve reactions. You see a little shimmer. You'll see it on horses as well, to try keep biting insects off them. Like a little shiver. Tom is wondering what's the difference between topi and Coke's hartebeest. You can never tell. Well, topi first are dark in coloration. Cokes are much lighter, sort of tawny coloured. The horn shape is completely different, and I'd say the Cokes are on average a little bit bigger than topi. Well, we'll see if we find some Cokes today. But yes, they're very different looking creatures. Oh, I'm causing a traffic jam. I can hear a car coming. Let's keep moving. before we cause a major traffic jam. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop through this lugger and do a little bit of a loop like that. See if we can see that baby giraffe again. Left it yesterday walking across this area. Mandy says, do prey ever associate the vehicles with predators, and vice versa? Do predators associate the vehicle with prey? Not here, not to my my observation since I've been in Kenya. Sorry about that, as I went through that little lugger there, there's a gremlin that lives under the bridge. Okay, we go. Whoa. So as I was saying, no. But what happens is if you do drive too close to the predators while they're hunting, the movement of the car, the animals can't help but look at movement, so they'll see the movement, and that is how you can sometimes give away the presence of a predator for a hunt. And sometimes inadvertently with a vehicle you might startle a prey species that makes it easier for the predator, but that's why we try to keep a very good distance when animals are on the hunt. Okay, so that giraffe was heading in this direction yesterday, the female with the wounded baby, so we're going to go have a squiz across the open plains. Kim is wondering, do gorillas occur in the Mara? No, they do not, Kim. This would not be a good gorilla habitat. Gorillas like forests. So the closest gorillas to here are in Uganda and Rwanda on the other side of Lake Victoria. And the mountains there in the mountain forests. Oh, now crown cranes are beautiful, but teenage crown cranes, yeah, not so much. There's that awkward teenage phase. Not quite as pretty as mom and dad yet. But look at that. Look at that. Oh, it was synchronized walking for a second. That is not a pretty creature. A teenage crown crane. I'll be watching that crown crane. I'm just going to have a quick scan with my binos to see if I can see any giraffe out here. Cindy says they're so cute they're ugly, or is it they're so ugly they're cute? I'm not sure. No sign of the giraffe on this side of the airstrip though, so we'll let them stride off a bit further, and we're going to keep searching for that little giraffe that we saw yesterday afternoon. The general direction was there, so I'm starting further than I think they are, and sort of walking my way around. Okay, well, we keep checking, and let's see what Jamie's looking for. Back behind us somewhere, heading in the opposite direction.
I'm just looking, really. I'm looking for anything to show you, and just thinking about how those adolescent crowned cranes are a really good example of how puberty doesn't do anybody any favors anywhere. Whether you're a crowned crane or a human being, it's always an awkward stage of life. At least the crowned cranes are a nice example of what can happen and how you can change as you grow older, whether it's a gangly crane or you're a gangly teenager with braces, which is exactly what I was. Gangly teenager with braces and bad posture. There's still hope. There's still hope. Oh, there we go. Here's an animal that never goes through an ugly stage at all. Baby waterbuck are utterly adorable. Adult waterbuck are very striking with lovely heart-shaped noses. This is a Dufassa waterbuck, which is a subspecies that occurs in the Mara. And somewhere, I can't remember where now, somewhere around Kenya, there's a mixture of the two. There's a sort of an in-between waterbuck that's a combination of both the waterbuck that you'll see in South Africa with the white ring around the bottom, and then the Dufassa waterbuck, which is the same species but a different subspecies with the solid white bottoms. And somewhere there's one that's sort of somewhere in between, with a little bit of a ring around and then the white as well, which is fascinating. A nice example of geographic separation and speciation and all of those sorts of things, and how you end up with biologists fighting for days, months, possibly even years, about whether or not something qualifies as a species or a subspecies, how on earth you determine the distinction with a line that fine, and then you end up with confusion as we have with the giraffe species. David, no. As far as I know, actually not as far as I know. No, they can't. Bushbuck and waterbuck cannot interbreed. The bushbuck that you see in South Africa is more closely related to the bongo, I think, if I remember correctly, with some of the recent information that's come to light, whereas the waterbuck actually falls into a different species, a different tribe completely. There is, however, another antelope that it can breed with, and that is called a lechwe. Now, a lechwe is a very similar looking antelope. It lives more in the sort of, it does live in swampy areas, and it doesn't have quite the same shaggy fur. And you'll find it in the sort of central southern part of Africa. And they can interbreed. There was a record of one not so long ago breeding with a waterbuck. And it resulted in something that I can't remember what it was called, but I really hope it was called a wetchwe. That's what I'm hoping it was called. Or a waterwe. No, that doesn't have the same ring, does it? It must be a wetchwe. Or a lechbuck. Or any other combination of the two names that I can't quite work out in my own mind what it should be. I really want it to be called a wetchwe, though. I know that typically when you get two species breeding, the first letter is taken from the male species name. So a liger, for example, the male would be the lion, and the mother would be the female would be the mother would be the tiger. That was really confusing. Did that make any sense in how you name it? And a tiger, the male is the tiger and the female is the lion. Most things don't naturally interbreed. Most different species don't naturally interbreed. It's one of the reasons why they are termed as different species rather than subspecies, whereas most subspecies can interbreed. It's a bit more complicated than that. But yes, they can interbreed with a lechwe. So if you look, one of the really nice, good indicators as to whether or not something might be able to interbreed is, your first clue is whether or not they have a different genus, if they belong to a different genus. So, for example, the lechwe, the waterbuck, the cob, and I think the puku, if I remember correctly, they will all belong to the cobus genus, and there's a chance that they can interbreed. Whereas a bushbuck belongs to a separate genus entirely. Now that doesn't always help you, because most of the time different species will not interbreed, but it does give you a little bit of a hint as to just how different species are. So the Tragelaphus. I always make that mistake when I'm talking about the Latin name of the bushbuck, the spiral-horned antelope family. That would include things like nyala or bushbuck. Melody, you would never have seen a puku. It is one of my favorite names of any antelope after perhaps the topi, because the topi is just such a wonderful name to say. Topi. A puku is one that is an antelope that you will find in, again, it likes quite marshy areas. It's obviously the connection with the waterbuck. Oh, there's some romance happening there. Or some potential romance. Zambia would be one place where you could see a puku. I think you can see it in the sort of wet grassland areas. I have to confess, I have never seen a puku. I have only ever seen pictures of a puku. But I'm pretty sure, if I remember my classifications correctly, it is related to the waterbuck. Slightly smaller. Looks like a mixture between a waterbuck and an impala, if you could imagine such a thing. So that is what a puku is. Best name. One of the best names ever. Short of being a wechwe, which is also quite entertaining. Quick, off you go across to Brent. He's found a giraffe. I don't know whether or not he's found the injured calf.
Well, we're not sure whether this is mom or not. I'm trying to have a look, but no sign of the little one yet. It's the only giraffe, or female giraffe, we've seen. We have seen a male giraffe. Let's have a look between her front legs there for me, please. Looks like she's lactating. Yeah, so I think this is the mom from the other day, but no sign of the little one. Now that doesn't mean the little one hasn't made it. The little one could very easily be hiding in the thickets behind here. So we're going to just move on a little bit longer. See if we can spot. It said could very well be easily hiding somewhere in these croton thickets. Although this area has got such a high density of hyenas, this particular patch. The lions haven't seemed to be in around here, which is good news for that little one, but hyenas are just as deadly. Ryan would like to know whether the female giraffe has possibly given up on the baby because it couldn't keep up. I mean, it is a possibility. I don't think the injuries were that severe that she would have given up on it yet. And if there was attacked by hyenas, she almost certainly would have come to its defense. Let's see if those three big male lions we saw yesterday afternoon came this way. I'm afraid I think it was all over. Okay. Well, no sign of the little giraffe yet. But as I said, it could very well be hiding in these thickets here. And these thickets are quite impenetrable. You can't actually get a vehicle in them. Well, we're going to have to come check again tomorrow, I think. The Mara River is very low at the moment. Now, it flooded, but below the Talek junction. So the Talek and the Sand River have had a lot of rain, and that is caused flooding below those two junctions. But this top section hasn't had nearly as much rain. And I was looking at the Mara this morning, and there's certain spots you can probably just jump across the river at the moment. Let's have a look. Very, very low at the moment, the river. I mean, when I arrived, the water was right up to the edge of this here, so it's very, very low. It's probably why we're seeing a lot of those hippo bulls at the moment out in the luggers. Now, Tim is wondering how many giraffe do I estimate to be in the Mara. I'm not sure. A couple of thousand, Kim? A lot? Probably a couple of thousand in the Mara. Ben is wondering, can animals raised in captivity survive in the Mara? It's very, very unlikely, Ben. There's always a possibility, but it is very unlikely. Someone tagged me in a video today. I'm not going to go into the details about the people who put up the video. And there were some blinding inconsistencies which often come from that front in that video. Basically, they were taking captive bred lions and releasing them back in the wild, saying that all the other people said you couldn't do it, look how we're doing it. Now again, it's a bit more complicated than they're making it out to be. No one has ever said you need to teach a lion how to be a lion. A captive lion, if left in the wild, will hunt, will quite quickly hunt, and as soon as it gets hungry. Now the problem comes into your conflict with other lions. So if you put a captive bred lion into the Mara, it's immediately probably going to get killed by one of the dominant male lion coalitions. And the same goes for females, to be killed by one of the female prides. So, but they're saying, oh look, they did this. Now, to give you an idea, they said they released them to the wild. They released them to 1,200 hectares, so not even 2,000 acres, with no other lions there. Now, however, they have, yes, released these captive lions into this area, and they are hunting and eating wildebeest and kudu with no problem whatsoever. The reason you can't release captive lions into an area that is used by tourists is most of those captive lions would have been fed from a vehicle. They have no of their natural or instinctive fears of people. So what happens is they kill people, and which gets them shot anyway. So of course you can. Oh, they all took off. Of course you can release captive bred big cats back into the wild, providing that it's a place they're never going to see human beings or have game drive vehicles around. And secondly, that there are no other pre-existing lion prides. Oh, they flew again. These Temix courses are not being very nice today. Let's get a bit closer. So it is a complicated discussion. It's not a simple discussion. The release of captive bred animals back into the wild. Generally, what happens is the captive animals are killed very quickly by the wild animals if there's species confrontation. So, I mean, this is a very complicated topic. Here we go. Hello. Very pretty little birds. Here we go. The Temix coursers. The lovers of the short grass. Off they scuttle. Gorgeous little things. Okay, well, I'll think a bit more about that question about captive bred animals while I mosey on down along towards the forests. While I do that, let's go see what animal Jamie's got to the south of us.
I have got a Thompson's gazelle and a miniature Thompson's gazelle. Very tiny little Tommy, about as small as we're likely to see at this time of year. Most of the females are coming back into estrus once again. Oh, Mum left you. Are you all alone? Little abandoned baby Tommy, quickly catch up with Mum. It has to step so high to get through the grass. There's a little tail waggling. One of my favorite things about Thompson's gazelle is that constantly in motion tail. Oh, little skip. At this age, the little Thompson's gazelle is still spending a lot of time hiding away from its mother. They basically just lie down and become almost invisible in the long grass. And their natural instinct is to stay still, stay still, stay still, stay still, stay still, even when the predators are right on top of them. And that is a natural defense mechanism to keep them hidden and secret. And essentially, it doesn't always work, as we've seen with Imani, for example, who found a baby. She's a cheetah, and she found a baby Thompson's gazelle that stayed completely still, but unfortunately she was just too close to it, and she worked out what it was, and she walked up to it, and she just battered it with her paw until it just couldn't stay still any longer, and it got up and it ran away. But I have come very close once, and I was live at the time, so I think those of you who watch regularly will remember it. I came very close to driving over one because it was lying in the middle of the road and it did not move, and it was almost invisible. It was so tiny and so well camouflaged it looked like a little rock. Now that's how strong that instinct is, to not move a muscle. And it makes sense, because once that predator is close enough, there's no way that the little Tommy's going to escape. They're just not fast enough. Even though they're pretty quick on those little legs, so they're still not fast enough to outpace a lion, a leopard, or a cheetah. So it makes sense for them at that point, when all is essentially lost, to stay as still as possible and just hope that they remain camouflaged, because that natural hunting instinct, that chasing instinct, often isn't triggered if they stay still, especially because then they're not spotted. So that's where that drive comes from. And there's quite a few antelope that have a very similar approach, mostly the large antelope. So things like sable and roan and gemsbok, I have nearly stepped on youngsters hiding away from their mothers, and the mothers will leave them and then come back and feed them every now and again, like this. You know, the difference between a Thompson's gazelle and a springbuck. Now, that's a good question. We don't get springbuck here in the Mara. We do get springbuck, of course, in South Africa. And they do look very similar, or at least they've got the stripe along the side. So they've got very similar coloration, slightly differently shaped horns. They're also slightly larger, and they are phenomenal jumpers. So springbuck tend to live around the slightly more arid areas, and they are very, very common in those places. You don't usually find them in it. It's almost as though impala, I don't know what that was, but it was very cool. Harrier? At first glance, the sun is right in my eyes. Is Mom's going to chase it away? Yeah, she did. We know that some of the eagle species, very nice, Adrian, we know that some of the eagle species, this is not an eagle, will hunt. It looks like to me, looks like it might be a female pallid, but it's hard to tell. It keeps ducking and diving, and it's really bright. Nice opportunity for screenshots, because I think it might have caught something there. I saw the white across. It does look like it's caught something. There's white across the top of its tail. I think it's a female pallid harrier. What did it catch, I wonder? Sorry, hold on to the question about the impala and the Thompson and the springbuck. So it does belong to an entirely different family. So, what have you caught there, harrier? Definitely looks like a harrier. Some kind of insect, perhaps? I couldn't see exactly what it looked like. I don't know if any of you got screenshots, because you'll be able to see slightly more clearly without the glare of the sun obscuring my monitor. It definitely looked like it got something. I don't know if any of you got screenshots of what it might have been. Something large enough that it hasn't gulped it down in one go. So it's not a small insect, it's not a grasshopper or something like that. Now Faith says she thinks it actually might have been a rodent. That would be incredible if that was what had happened. Very nice, Adrian. awesome. As it's hovering right on the far reaches of where Adrian can film. He's about to hit the pole of the roof. Oh, and it's back again. It's taunting you. Whatever it was that it got, it can't have been a rodent. It can't have finished it that quickly, could it? Maybe a small rodent. Okay. I'm going to keep an eye on our harrier. I've forgotten what I'm sending you over to Brent with, but I'm definitely sending you across to Brent because he's the only other person. So let's go find out what it is.
Well, not a bird we see too often in the Mara. It is the saddle-billed stork. Fishing for frogs and whatnot in one of the little pans on the edge of the Mara River. And more giraffe, but still no sign of that injured youngster yet. Those little ones are too old. One was far, far younger. A month or so old. Those guys are teenagers. So there's a strong possibility that giraffe could be hiding in one of the thickets. But in this area with the high hyena density, we can only hope. There we go. Now, over there, you can actually see there's quite a lot of sort of open ground, eroded areas there, and that's actually because a lot of the hippos use that to access and exit the Mara River. Oh, we've got some ellies heading down towards the river. There we go, nice big herd. Heading into the cool of the forest after the heat of the day. You can almost hear nothing except for the wind. Melody says, such majestic. Let's stay on that one there with no tusks. Ah, interesting. Something you don't see often in the Mara, a tuskless female. She looks like she's actually been born with no tusks. It doesn't look like she's broken them. Can't see the other side there, but it's not impossible. It is unusual in certain areas, but we definitely see more tuskless females in southern Africa than here. But she definitely looks like she was born without tusks. Melting into the riverine vegetation. Tom is wondering what would cause an elephant to be born without tusks. Genetics. It is just a genetic trait. So probably a double recessive gene, similar to what we'd call Menilism or leucism in animals. What are they feeding under there? What tree is that? They found some fruit under. Probably it looks like an ebony. It is. Under an ebony, a Diospyros tree. Not the same as the jackalberry we get all the way back in South Africa. Ino is wondering, what is the Swahili name for elephant? It is Tembo, or Ndlovu, depending on where you are, which is the same as it is in Zulu and Shangaan and Ndlovu. So in certain parts of East Africa, elephants are also referred to in Ndlovu, mostly from the Angoni areas to the east along Lake Victoria and in southern Tanzania. But no, the more accepted Swahili name is Tembo. Okay, well, we're going to move on while they move into the forest. Hopefully we'll find some a bit closer and out in the open, a little bit further down the drag. Okay, so while I speed up a little bit to get to that area where I want to be, let's go see where Jamie has got to thus far.
To where I want to be, which is the main crossing points at the Mara River below Serena. And I'm curious to see what everybody's looking at. Everybody seems to have all of a sudden congregated over here. So let's go and find out what they've seen. Is it Paradise Pride? What is it? Is it just hippos and crocs? Is it the musketeers? Is it those two giraffe I can see? What is that cul-de-sac crossing waiting to surprise us? Got a sneaking suspicion it's the hippos and the crocodiles, which is not a bad thing. Are those giraffe in the river? That's actually very interesting. Let's have a look. Oh. No, they look like they want to cross though, or potentially have a drink. This could be interesting. Hi. I gotta tell you, if they do cross, all they've got to do is wade through a little puddle. I mean, it's not going to be dramatic in any way, shape, or form. There's not much. They will be perhaps ankle deep in water, but their ankles are quite high. Their ankles are all the way halfway up their legs. Oh, and two young bulls having a bit of a scrap. Not a scrap. That's probably the wrong way of describing it. A very minor practice battle for dominance. A sparring session would be a better way of terming that. And I always think that these gentle sparring sessions between two males actually look quite affectionate when you watch them. Gently swing their heads around, just touching their opponent. It almost looks as though they're giving them a loving nuzzle, which is not what they're doing. They are establishing patterns of dominance they're establishing a pattern of behavior that will allow them to establish dominance when the time comes and when there's a female in estrus. So no defending territories for giraffe. The males don't have a territory that the females then visit or that allows them access to the females. I actually should have expected that question from Martin. It is a good question. Have crocodiles ever taken out a giraffe crossing the river? I suspect it has happened, particularly a young giraffe. I'm sure, in fact, that it has happened. A giraffe's been grabbed by the leg. And you know what? Funny you should ask that. I've just remembered I saw a series of photographs of a giraffe in the Kruger that had been grabbed by a crocodile, and the giraffe was far too big for the crocodile, but the crocodile just refused to let go of this poor thing's leg and probably did serious damage to, if not just the tendons, even potentially the bone, the joint of the carpals. It was grabbed by it would be the tarsals actually, because it was the back leg that it had grabbed. So yes, it does happen. It's unusual, and for the most part a crocodile is not big enough or strong enough to take down an adult giraffe. But bear in mind those spindly long legs. A potential injury could be really seriously life-threatening, and if the giraffe goes down, it can't get up that quickly. And if it's down in the water, it could end up drowning. The vast majority of human giraffe-related injuries, in other words, giraffe causing injury to humans, have been as a result of giraffe falling on people. And once they start to go, they go. It's one of the things that makes, if there's ever a situation where a giraffe has to be captured, it's one of the things that makes it quite difficult to do. If they are darted with anesthetic or sedative or whatever it happens to be, obviously their descent has to be somewhat controlled, because that is a great height for them to fall from. And it's actually very difficult to do. Proud cat mama. The social structure of a giraffe is a relatively fluid one. So they don't actually have a set herd structure. You will find often that you get bachelor herds, and you'll usually find that you get females all together in a herd. It's more of a loose aggregation though. So those herds are not permanent. They don't stay together. Often a female will wander off on her own, and you'll see her on her own, and then perhaps she might join up with another group of giraffe and then leave and then join another group. So they are very flexible in their social structure. They don't have set herds. And they don't have territories. It's only when a female comes into estrus that the males will actually really come to blows and fight seriously for the right to mate with her. You'll find males in a herd, then they'll go off and go on their own. Most of the time, the really big, mature, dark males who are over 10 years old, most of the time they will be on their own. But it's not a set structure. There's no set social structure within giraffe. Now, it makes sense that a lot of the time the females, when they're in a herd or when they're together, mothers and daughters might stay together for a prolonged period of time, even once the daughter is fully mature and has a calf of her own. So there's no set herd structure. Senorita, a giraffe is not actually really capable of making a sound. So recently there's evidence that they can make sounds that are too deep for a human being to hear, a sort of a deep humming sound, or a very, very low sounds, but they do not vocalize like we sort of, what's the word? We associate vocalizations with antelope, for example, their alarm calls, anything like that. Giraffe don't make those sounds. So I would be very impressed if you have ever heard a giraffe, because you can't. And it's only recently that those deep, deep sounds, too low for human beings to hear, have actually been, that they've actually noticed that humming. And the strange thing is that it is not really clear if they're actually communicating with each other. And occasionally, those hums are actually audible to humans. Richard, no, we don't. Of course, I know there was a lot of fuss recently about the white giraffe that was seen. They were seen in Kenya, they were not seen in the Mara. So they don't occur here. Could they occur here? Yes, absolutely. There's no reason. The albinism gene expresses itself at the strangest moments. And all of a sudden, you find yourself staring at, or melanistic gene, all of a sudden you find yourself hearing stories of melanistic serval, or I can't think, or a melanistic leopard, or an albino giraffe, or an albino elephant. It is a recessive gene, it's very rare. White is not a good color for a mammal out here. and that's why it has not been selected for. That's why it's as rare as it is, because most of the time the albino individuals don't survive. Their skin is too sensitive to the sun. For one thing, it makes them stand out to predators. It's incredible to me, though, how human beings have a fascination, a serious fascination with either melanism, albinism, or leucism, some kind of different animal, to the point that they're bred, or to the point that, for example, melanistic lions are photoshopped. Well, I can say with absolute certainty that Brent's lions that he's just found are not melanistic, because it doesn't occur in lions.
Here we go. Quite unusually, we have a non-melanistic lion. Of course, I'm joking, but a lioness walking in the heat. She just popped out of the Croton forest, and is heading off towards the northwest. I was wondering if she might have spotted a warthog close by, but I only see some way in the distance. She has been spotted by an impala in the forest. I can hear them snorting at her. This is marsh breakaway country, and there are warthog quite a long way in the distance. Okay, we need to get around to the other side. There's another road there, so we're going to have to shoot at high speed, so hold on. Let's get around to the other side where she's heading towards. There are some warthog out there, but probably about 5 minutes away at top speed. She might, of course, just flop into the shade, but let's rather get into a good position beforehand. Okay, so while I'm rushing around, let's go back to Jamie and some giraffe.
Our giraffe is still here, so it gives us the perfect opportunity to keep you entertained while Brent gets a better view of his lions. And we were talking about albinism and melanism and so on within different animals, and I didn't fully finish my train of thought, but you'll have to agree with me that human beings in general do have a serious fascination with animals that are different. I suppose it makes sense. Something unique, something rare. But we find whenever we discuss some kind of color morph of a mammal in particular, people are less interested in the color morphs of birds, although there are certain people who find it fascinating, as we do. But as soon as we mention albinism or melanism, immediately people come up with a whole range of different questions and whether or not we've ever seen them. I know Noelle saw a melanistic squirrel not so long ago. She was chatting about it this morning. I have seen very few color morph mammals in my time. Very, very few. I still haven't seen a melanistic serval, and I really want to, and I can't quite understand my own fascination with it. And then in South Africa, it ends up with animals being bred that way. White impala, gold wildebeest. Black springbok, actually, come to think of it. I have absolutely no idea. Albakwe, you okay there? Albakwe wants to know if giraffe can be born with dwarfism. I don't think so. I don't think that is a possibility within giraffe. It is something, generally speaking, that in the animal world is very, very rare, because of course it's something that will put the animal at a disadvantage and make them more likely to be preyed upon. I've seen it in lions, but in a very artificial situation where the lions they were captive lions, and it was not a pretty sight. It was not a pretty situation, actually. So I don't think so. I would be very surprised. I bet you anything actually, that someone somewhere on the internet has photoshopped it, though. For some reason, I've just got that instinctive feeling that someone somewhere has photoshopped a giraffe like that. Or a miniature giraffe. Now, onto a different tact entirely. While we watch our giraffe enjoying a meal, it's interesting sorry to hold on to that thought, Jenny. It's interesting the different approaches to the two different giraffe here. One has gone straight back to having lunch, and the other one's been staring at us intently, and it's entertaining to watch. It's just, I don't know, it's just fascinating that's the two of them have behaved so differently. Okay, he's not staring at us anymore. Oh, I'm sorry, Jenny. I'm so sorry. I completely forgot. You asked a question about sexual maturity. It actually takes quite a while. So for females, you're looking at around about 4 years. Males can be up to 5 years, but males might not even breed until they're over 10. And that's just purely as a result of competition. When a female does come into estrus, then that opportunity is no longer with them. No, let me try and rephrase that. The opportunity to mate is highly competitive, and until they're about 10 years old, they might not actually be big enough, strong enough, and experienced enough to compete. But 4 to 5 years old, is when a giraffe will reach sexual maturity. So it's actually quite a long period of time, where if you compare something like, for example, an impala, it'll be after about 2 years. But then, the bigger the animals are, generally speaking, the longer it takes them to reach that stage. So something like a hippo usually reach sexual maturity around about 10 to 13 years old. Same with elephants, maybe even a bit later for elephants. Rhino mature quite fast. They'll have their first calves at probably around about 7 or 8 years old. Baboons take a long time. Kim, yes, we only have the Maasai giraffe here. So the Maasai giraffe, remember I said to you that there's arguments about the different species. My personal opinion is to go with the distinction of the 4 different species and with subspecies within those 4 species. Something that CITES disagrees with, and for various reasons. CITES lists it as one giraffe species with several subspecies, but no, we only get the Maasai giraffe here. And of course, you'll see a different species of giraffe when our South African crew joins us, if they manage to find you a giraffe. It's a contentious issue. But you can really see the difference. You really can. Dale, yes. Here's a nice example, a continuation of the conversation we were having about species and subspecies. Yes, giraffe subspecies can interbreed, and they will, beyond that, produce fertile offspring. So, of course, it's the standard example is the mule. The mixture between a horse and a donkey is infertile, although there are rare cases where fertile individuals have been born. But no, the subspecies can interbreed, and in fact, you'll probably find that the 4 different species could interbreed. Would they, though? That's the next question. Could they, in an artificial situation? Probably. Would they? Because the only way that they would encounter each other is artificially. Half of the reason for the distinction in terms of speciation, which are different species. Okay, off we trundle. We're going to go see if we can find some lions round the river, but it is a giraffe-themed Sunday afternoon. Let's go and join Brent with some more.
And Sam
are keeping a close eye on that lioness. And we've just come to the opposite side of those bushes. Now, the way the giraffe are looking down, I think she's going to pop out soon, but we're going to play the patience game. There are some warthog about. I've lost sight of one of the warthog now. And you see how that giraffe's looking back? That's where she is. She's in there somewhere, so I think she's still on her way out in this direction. So, have a quick look. She's in those thickets somewhere. So let's see if she pops out. There's some topi around. There are some pigs. Those pigs are too close to some Grant's gazelles, so I think she'll get spotted way before she gets close to those pigs. I said there was a warthog close by, but I've lost it in the long grass now. Which is where you don't want to be as a warthog with lions about. In long enough grass to hide a warthog is long enough grass to hide a lion. Of course, she might lose interest and go flat in those thickets. Wendy is wondering, do warthogs ever team together to defend themselves against predators? Mother will attack something that's attacking her young, but they don't not really team players, a warthog, unfortunately for them. Oh, I wonder if she's gone flat again. I'll have to wait and see. Keep me a very close eye on this line of bushes. And giraffe are walking far away from there. But still no sign of her popping her head through yet. I'm just trying to keep quiet and listen. Sometimes little birds will give away their position of where she is as she's walking through the bushes. But at the moment, all we can hear is the wind. Oh, and some wattled lapwings, but they're not complaining about her. She looked quite hungry when we did spot her. Ludmila is wondering, do giraffes have any sort of alarm call for predators? No. They'll just stare at them, and generally their body language will be enough to sort of dictate that there's a predator there. You see there's a car on the other side, pretty much directly opposite where we last left her. I wonder if they can see. Now I think she might be moving along the edge of those bushes on the opposite side. Ooh, the patience game. So important when you're out in the bush. Mary's wondering, is the lioness stalking the giraffe? No, Mary, I think she's after warthogs. So just up ahead here, there was a warthog all by its own in the long grass, but I've lost sight of it now. But I think if she's stalking anything, she's after the pigs. The single lioness, even those giraffe, they're a bit too big for her. It's always worth keeping a close look. So I see there's another vehicle that's positioned themselves over there, also overlooking. So I think there's something up, and I think it's worth playing out the patience game here to see what happens next. It could take 10 minutes, it could take 2 hours. You never know when you're on a live safari. And that's why I'm not looking back at camera so much. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss a slight bit of movement in the long grass there. We do have some ellies opposite us as well. There's always quite a few ellie bulls in this area. And some impala as well. A lovely light. But I definitely think it's worth waiting to see what happens here next. So while Archie and I keep vigil, let's go see what Jamie's found in the magnificent but murderous and very low at the moment Mara River.
It's very low. Brent is absolutely right. I have never ever seen it this low before. It is really quite empty, and for the hippopotamus of the Mara River, unless it does rain at some point soon further upstream, they're going to start to battle for space, and we're going to see more and more displaced hippo who are struggling to the hippo equivalent of make ends meet, because there's just not going to be enough space for them. It fills up quickly though. When it rains further up the escarpment towards the source of the Mara River, or at least further up where it's a lot smaller, it gathers very fast and the Mara actually fills up very, very quickly. So it's not something to be too concerned about, but it is something to be remarked upon. It is so low that if the migration came through now, if the wildebeest came through now, or the zebra, they would just be able to walk across the rocks, and they would make it out perfectly unscathed, and the crocodiles would remain unfed. I mean, if you look at some of that, let's take that area for example. This is Main North crossing. So usually when we watched the crossings, you could sort of see in the direction of, you could see down towards Main South, and they would usually cross by those croton thickets over there, rather than where we are over here. And they could just walk, they could stroll across. You might get the odd broken ankle as they wandered across the slippery rocks, but otherwise they'd be absolutely fine. So it really is very, very shallow. They could just trot across. But they're not going to come at this time of year, because that would defeat the point of the whole migration process. They're going to come after the long rainy season, when the river is full but the grass is green. There's even an island. I wonder if hippo are aware. I mean, of course they're aware of the shrinking water, but I wonder if they get nervous. And yes, I suppose they do actually. This whole, scrap that whole last thought process. I was trying to say I wonder if they anticipate water holes drying up, but of course they get more nervous and anxious as the water starts to disappear and they're forced into closer and closer contact with minimal space, and as the battles between males get more frequent and often more violent. Hopefully it does rain. It looks like it might actually even rain tonight. It's just whether or not it'll rain in the right place. There is also a crocodile enjoying a basking session on the bank. Over there. There we go. Looking a lot like a log on the opposite side. And a big crocodile like that will be waiting patiently for the migration, might eat the odd fish, maybe get lucky with the odd animal coming across or coming down to drink, but all in all, will be waiting for its next proper meal to be around the migration. They can be so sinister. They are wonderful animals.
Welcome to everyone who's just joining us, as well as everyone who's been with us for the last while. We're still sitting and playing the patience game. There's a big herd of Topi, Grant's gazelle, there's warthog, a buffalo around, and there was a single lioness stalking towards them. But at the moment, we've lost sight of the lion in the thickets, but we're just standing by here to see if we can spot her popping out. She might have gone for a snooze in there, but at the moment we cannot see her just there. Well, there's warthog, crowned crane, Grant's gazelle, all sorts. And those buildings you see in the distance, the gate at Governor's entrance into the Mara Triangle. But no sign of that lioness just yet. She hasn't popped her head through the bushes. Now remember everyone, this is coming to you 100% live from the Masai Mara in Kenya. And we are playing the patience game. Dale is wondering, are there any introduced species in the Mara that might be considered as pests? Not intentionally introduced into the reserve, but there are some exotic plants that are often brought down by the rivers and things like that. So there are a few exotic plant species. Exotic animal species, I can't think of any offhand. Now, what's going on there? There's two male Topi having a little bit of a run at each other over the ladies. Now, like with most antelopes, when they get more worried about chasing each other about, they tend to forget that sometimes there are lions about, and the lions and other predators will take advantage of situations like that. So let's just keep an eye on those Topi as they run. I think they're lucky enough ran wide of the bushes that the lion is in. So that lioness is somewhere between us and the Topi. You'll see that long line of bushes. She disappeared into there while stalking a warthog. The warthog has moved off, so she might have gone flat. We're just waiting to see if she continued on. Now, more than likely she's part of the Marsh Breakaway Pride. So, as those Topi jog off, hang on, what have I spotted? False alarm. We're going to send you all the way back to South Africa. So my very good friend who likes to break down a lot in cars, Tristan, can say hello.
Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to all of those that have joined us on our various social media platforms. You can see that we have really struck luck down here in South Africa. We've managed to get started and have a beautiful big male leopard lying in a very deep, very difficult to get to area. It's a perfect place for a leopard to spend some time. So you can see he's hidden away quite nicely there. Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Wiem. There we go, thumbs up from Wiem. Now, it is live and interactive, which means that you can get hold of us if you have any questions or you want to ask any questions on hashtag Safari Live or on the YouTube chat or on any of the comment sections on the various platforms that we're on. Now, this male leopard, who is in probably the toughest spot possible, has actually got a kill inside here. So we've managed to see that there is a carcass. We can't make out what the carcass is. It looks like it could be something like a bushbuck or maybe a young nyala, young kudu, something like that, underneath a fallen over tree. And so we're parked almost directly on top of him on a very steep bank, trying to kind of get some sort of a view of him. When he goes towards the carcass, the view is almost non-existent. So we are very happy that he's been so obliging and has come out a little bit and lay off just to the side. Now, for those of you that haven't actually been with us over the last few days, this male leopard that we have here is a new male leopard to this area. He is slowly but surely starting to push in, and he is a bit of a threat because we have a number of females at the moment seriously big threat to all the cubs that we have, and the dominant male that was in this area just doesn't seem to be responding to this guy's advances just yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. We're almost in the midst of an epic saga that is going on. Now, Michelle, you say you love this Hukumuri male's eyes, so he does have intense eyes, doesn't he? And he kind of always looks quite wild-eyed and big eyes when he looks at you. He really does have a bit of character and something. Eyes open up and you can see kind of a bit of intensity in the way that he looks. Now, I was saying that he's fairly new to the area. He's been kind of coming in for the last sort of month, but only in about the last 10 days has he really been pushing in here properly, and he's starting to scent mark, to vocalize, and the fact that he's now got a kill quite central in Djuma and in the area that we traverse means that it's going to be very, very interesting as to whether the dominant male does come in and starts to stamp his authority, or if the dominant male is now going to just give up and move off and head further east. It's going to be a very, very interesting scenario. David, he could most definitely overthrow Tingana as the king of this area. So Tingana is that other male leopard that I was talking about, who was the dominant male, or is the dominant male, not was. We still see him, and he is the dominant male in this area. And it could very well be possible that this male might try and overthrow Tingana. The thing is that this male is definitely not as big as what Tingana was in his heyday. But the last time we saw Tingana looked a lot skinnier than his normally is. He was kind of looks as though he lost a bit of muscle mass around his shoulders. And this male here, while he's not nearly as big and as tall as what the dominant male Tingana is, he definitely has a serious set of shoulders on him and a big head and neck area, and he's going to be a strong individual, and it's going to be really interesting. It's probably why we've seen that our female leopards from this section, all of whom have cubs at the moment. So Kandi, Shadow, Sabui, Kuchava, they've all got cubs. Now, whether or not Tingana is the father of all those cubs remains to be seen, but they all do have cubs, and they've all pushed southeast from where they normally hang about. And I'm wondering if it's just because this male is starting to push in, and so all the females are going away, and Tingana maybe is just because he's got all those cubs, is staying very localized to those females and around those cubs, just to ensure their safety from this marauding male. It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays. Territorial dispute, or if it's going to be a situation that was like when Tingana took over here, where he just came in and pushed and pushed and pushed, and Mvula slowly but surely just gave way and disappeared out of the area. So Mary, wondering what would happen to Tandi's cub if Hukumuri found them? Well, undoubtedly he would kill that cub, so he would no doubt go towards the cub and try and kill it, and Tandi would be pretty powerless to stop it. She could try a little bit, but Tandi would be no match for him, and you'd find that she probably, if she comes across him, is going to just let it happen. Even though it sounds really odd, she might put up a little bit of a fight, and then after that she'll just be like, I can't actually fight with this guy, and I'm going to risk personal injury, and will then just move off. And the reason why that she does that is because she knows that if this male is pushed in and Tingana hasn't responded and hasn't come in to defend his area, that, well, this is the dominant male now, and the genes that she needs to mate with in order to assure survival of her cub. And so in all likelihood he would kill the cub, and it would be a bit of a disaster. And so what she's done is she's moved her cub far from where we are now. She's moved right down south into Little Gowrie and is pushing further south, deeper into where Tingana has been seen over the last few weeks, and is making sure that she's positioning herself there so that this male can't actually get to where she is, which is very, very clever. So she's an experienced female, and she'll know how to sort it out and how to try and keep that cub safe. And so hopefully between her and Tingana and safe. Right, well, we're going to see what he gets up to. He's still giving us the big eyes, and so while we watch him and see what he does, let's send you back across to the Mara and to Jamie and see what she's up to in the Masai Mara.
I am looking at a very large crocodile and trying to figure out whether or not I saw a lion here or not. I thought I did a little while ago, but now I'm not 100% sure that I wasn't imagining things. There were a couple of vehicles in the way, so I waited for them to move, and then when I got here, all I can see is one very large crocodile and no lion. I let's just move a little bit. I'm now desperate to try and figure out if I did see a lion or not. I thought I saw a head poke up over here, but I'm now wondering if I didn't imagine it. I must have. Unless they're lying up against the shade of the bank. I thought I saw a lion. Where was I? I was driving. Now I'm confused. Because I don't see a lion. I definitely don't see a lion. I'm definitely imagining things. I think I must have imagined the lion, which is very confusing. Brody, you wondering about our crocodile? Let me move my head out of the way. You want to know if crocodiles can hunt on land? Not very well, no. They are not... They're faster than you expect them to be when walking on land, but not all that quick. So they're not all that fast, they can't really cover ground, so anything that they might hunt that would be on the ground, they can't really catch. Everything will be out of the way as quickly as possible. They can launch themselves out of the water and onto the bank, and the momentum can carry them forwards a little bit, and then they might get lucky and snag an antelope, but they're not really equipped to hunt on land. They're not quick enough. Their element of, or their expertise lies in the element of surprise. So being able to ambush something that's come down to the side of the water to drink. I'm so confused. I'm going to go and just double check that I'm not going completely mad, because I could have sworn I saw a lion. Let us go and rejoin Tristan and the Hukumuri male, who is a welcome and yet unwelcome addition to our leopards on Djuma.
Well, our male has decided he's had enough of looking at VM and I are quite glad about that, because he is quite an intimidating fella, and the way he looks at you is often like he wants to eat you. So nice of him to have turned around and kind of faced that way for a little bit, give us a slight break of being intimidated by a big male leopard, and allow others on him. And he's also got a very kind of orangey color, quite different in terms of his coat color in comparison to the Tingana lineage or Tingana Karula lineage. They have a little bit of a different, more gold color, whereas he's more orange in the way that he looks. Also quite thick black markings in his rosettes. He's quite a good looking cat. I don't know, I quite like him. I think he's got something about him that's captivating. So Bella, yes, Tingana has had another leopard try and take his territory and successfully take it. So Tingana used to be dominant on the western side of Simbambili, Elephant Plains, down into an area called Arathusa Private, where there's now a lodge called Sylvan, and then into a little bit into Arathusa and also into Singita's Ottawa, that area. So that was where Tingana was dominant. But then came along Anderson, and Anderson, being the brute and the beast that he is, slowly but surely pushed Tingana further and that when he got pushed by Anderson, not quite his size either, and so ended up him pushing Mvula out and him finding this area as his own. So Tingana has been shifted with another male. The problem with Tingana has got now is that he's got a real serious situation on his hands, because he's got two young males on either side of him. Both of them are in great condition. Both of them seem like they mean business, and we've got this male, the Hukumuri male, coming from the west, and then from the eastern side he's got Quarantine. And so Quarantine is not a small individual, and to his south he's got Kunyuma. So he's got kind of these three boys that are all around him, all young, all of them are healthy, all of them are in good shape, and it's going make it very difficult for a 12-year-old leopard like Tingana to actually be able to sort of come up with a way to defend himself against these guys. It's going to be a task, and he's going to have to get himself into the game and try and come out with sort of bravado. So he's going to have to scent mark, vocalize, try and actually get into a situation where he's going to put on a big show and hope that these males back down and move away from him rather than actually challenge him. Right. For him to give us a slightly better view than what we've got at the moment, let's send you back across to Brent Leo Smith, who, well, I'm sure is having an absolute ball in Masai Mara.
Well, we're still playing the patience game here. We're still sitting in the same spot. I've just repositioned so we can watch these Ellie bulls while we wait for this lioness to pop out of the bushes. She is not done just yet. Still no sign of her. So we do have a lovely group of Ellies just sort of meandering around where this lugger sort of feeds out and creates this lovely green flush. So when it rains a lot, all the soils and nutrients get dumped down into this area. Similar to the swamp, just a much smaller version. So you do get a lot of, well, the elephants really like it, as well as a lot of the other animals congregating in these areas. And there's some bulls, a bit of a breeding herd. San Diego is wondering, what is the largest herd of elephants I've ever seen in my life? Well, herd is probably the wrong word, so to speak. So elephants generally live in little family groups, but you do get them in big congregations at certain times of the year around normally water. And I can say I've safely seen, without moving, I've seen close on 1,000 elephants in one place in the Okavango in Botswana, or actually in northern Botswana, north of the Okavango, on the Kondo River. And you can see easily 1,000 elephants from one spot in an afternoon there. Impala moving quite close to the edge of the tree line there, but I think the lion is probably sleeping somewhere on the other side. So there goes Impala, but she might have spotted them, might have changed her direction. Oh, well, I wait for our lioness to make an appearance. It sounds like Jamie has finally broken her bad cat bad luck. Let's go see what she's got.
I wasn't going crazy. I was just slightly in the wrong place, because I drove past and I saw the lion, and then I drove on and I turned around just to check what else was around before I came back. So I did see a lion hiding underneath a bush. There you go. I actually saw 2 lions, and these must be lionesses from the Paradise Pride. It's a big pride. I don't know where the rest of them are, quite possibly lying further down the bank, since the river is so low. I think they probably feel as though they can utilize that spot without being nervous of crocodiles, or possibly even on the other side of the river. And the Paradise Pride, or this particular pride of lions, cross backwards and forwards regularly. And often we find one group on one side of the river and one group on the other. So just 2 lionesses that I can see for now, and a pride that specializes in the exhausted animals that have made the crossing across the river and are ambushed on the other side by the waiting lionesses. Of course, at the moment, everything can just trot through the river, but they'll still get ambushed on the other side by the lionesses waiting in the bushes. It's something that they have basically created as their niche, although I'm sure that their territory is much larger than just this section of river. For the most part, they never really need to stray too far away. There's always animals about along the edge of the river. This rufous-naped lark is singing along so happily. Tommy, you want to know how close we are to her? Look here. You'll be able to see, or you'll be able to gauge exactly how close we are. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 10 meters away from her at the moment, so around about 30 feet. As you can see, she's not bothered by us. So different animals require a different distance from the vehicles in order to feel comfortable. We call it their comfort zone. These animals have grown up with safari vehicles moving around them all the time from when they are very small, and what that means is that they're very, very accustomed to the presence of vehicles. We often explain to our newer viewers that they do not see us as a threat, nor do they see us as a food source. So it's not something that instinctively they think, oh, that's something I can eat. Whereas the shape of an antelope or a zebra has had many, many years to embed itself in a lion's instinct as something that they want to go and run after and catch and eat. So we're not in any danger sitting this close to her, nor are we bothering her. So she's not even changing her ears in sort of to point towards the direction of my voice. She's just getting more comfortable. But it is very much a question of gauging each animal individually. You don't make the same assumption that just because this pride of lions is comfortable means that the next pride of lions that I see is comfortable with vehicles. You watch the reaction as you drive up to the... We always drive in very slowly, very carefully. Even in situations where we know the lions, we are careful to gauge our approach, and we're watching constantly to see how the animal's responding. We're reading their body language, and the minute there's any kind of adverse reaction, even if it's just lifting their heads up in surprise, we immediately stop and give them a little bit of extra room. So that's one of the things that we, especially for viewers that, or for those of you that will eventually come and drive yourselves on safari, it's a nice little point to bear in mind that although the animals are not scared of the vehicles, that privilege can actually be abused. And it pays to watch the animal's body language